Folks, we'll start in just a second. I'm watching the numbers climb when it slows down, which appears to be occurring now. Okay, I'm Stanley Halt, the Dean of the School of Data Science and Society, and I want to welcome everyone here and thank you so sincerely for taking the time out during your lunch to help us out with the planning and the strategic planning for the new school. And it's vital that we get your feedback from this process. And we're very grateful. And I'm going to turn this over to Paul Friga from the Kenan-Flagler Business School to help us go through this process. We've carefully planned this out and hopefully we'll get a lot of nice feedback from you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Paul.
Thank you, Stan. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Welcome back to reality. And welcome back to the School of Data Science and Society. I'm Paul Friga. I'll be your host today to represent a lot of hard work that's been done by a task force of both SDSS members as well as Kenan-Flagler MBAs and undergrads. By way of introduction, I'm a professor of strategy in the Kenan-Flagler School of Business, and I do a lot of strategic planning support for units on campus and also off. I'm delighted to be engaged in this project. This is a very entrepreneurial effort. It's one of the most exciting things. We haven't had a new school in a very long time at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And so we're at the point now where we're ready to share some ideas with the broader community who has been engaged with efforts over the past 6 years, but to now tighten things up and try to prioritize what needs to be done moving forward. So this will be a very efficient webinar. We don't have access for wide-scale discussion. But we do, fortunately, have the ability to hear from each one of you through your computer or your phone. As we share ideas with you, we'll specifically ask you to give us feedback, quantitative and qualitative, on the ideas as they stand right now. So with that, I'll go ahead and move into the next slide. I've got my able MBA project leader helping me navigate these slides today, and we'll introduce him in a minute. The agenda for today, 3 points. We'll describe the project at a high level, work that's been done to date, deliverables, et cetera. We'll then present our first content area of our SWOT analysis, that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and allow each of you to opine on your level of agreement or disagreement, each one, plus give you the ability to put in comments that we will content code and share back with the task force. The SWOT analysis is a great strategy tool used to create ideas for the strategy. And then part 3 of our presentation today will be involved with sharing the draft strategy statements, that's mission, vision, values, and priorities with you, and allowing you to share your reaction to that, plus make suggestions for us going forward. So it may feel like it's a presentation, but it's really geared to get you educated on the thinking of the committee so far and the consulting team, and then get your individual level responses to move us forward. Next slide, please. Moving into the project overview, which again covers the big picture. Why are we here? How are we going about this? And where are we? This is really a question of, as I mentioned, entrepreneurship creating. But I'll tell you what's been very impressive to me as an outsider just getting involved with this unit is the vision to be the top, to be #1 in terms of data science. That's undergrad, MBA. We're going to have online options and be very innovative. So we've got a tremendous amount of data science already taking place at UNC Chapel Hill. So you're going to see this strategy is about being a catalyst and being an integrator, connector, and then creating new things that the world really needs right now. Super exciting time for this and lots of support and enthusiasm going into it. Our project is focused on reviewing the work that's been done, updating financial projections, completing a competitor analysis, and then creating pitch deck material that will be important to get the state to continue to fund, plus the university to fund this effort moving forward. Not getting into staffing or financial analysis, academic program reviews, or research plans, but this is really creating of the strategy. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, one of the most important things is to tighten up our story in terms of the value proposition of this school. Why is it needed? How does it help the state of North Carolina? What kind of investment will be necessary to bring this to full reality and begin into implementation? So that'll be 1 and 2 there, the infographic and a 6-page summary, things that can be shared widely. A competitor analysis is a deliverable that's been done looking at the top 10 undergrad, MBA, and online programs across the country, seeing what they're up to in terms of programs and pricing and positioning. Doing some priority analysis, you'll see some draft ideas coming for that, as well as getting into the strategy statements, and eventually we'll get to financial projections. Here are the projects, project timelines and the pieces. We're right there in the middle. So the team has met internally, the Kenan-Flagler team, and really tried to digest and do research. And then we've met with the task force and had some great meetings to brainstorm the material you're about to see. We'll hear what you say. We'll also have an advisory committee meeting next week. We're going to take all that back in and then create the final strategy, including implementation planning and projections. And then we're going to have our wrap up by targeting the end of January. Here's the team. What an honor to work with this knowledgeable team, vested team, passionate team. And they've been working on this for a long time. We just started this project in September. They've been working on this, many of them, for over 6 years in terms of different committees and things that have been created, both well supported by the university in terms of the provost and the chancellor's office. So I'm not going to go through and introduce every single person, but I will tell you that it's a great mix of faculty, staff, and student representatives and team that it's just been fun to work with, but also extremely professional and dedicated. Our consulting team is a team of all students who are interested in consulting, but also who are passionate about data science. So we've worked hard to pull that together. You can see my background. I was a consultant with McKinsey and Price Waterhouse. I do a lot of strategic planning. As I mentioned before, it's my passion. My PhD was in strategy, and this is what, and I research higher education. So this is one of my passions as well. Okay, so again, this webinar, we're going to update you on progress. We're then going to present some ideas to you and then have you individually give us feedback. We're also recording the webinar if people couldn't be here, so we can share it with a wider audience and they could watch the video and then also give us feedback. We'll leave the survey open beyond just today. So this is the Qualtrics link. You can use your phone right up to the QR code. You can use the URL that's presented there. And I think I also saw that Anna had already put in the chat for the Qualtrics link as well. So we will be wanting you. Now, we don't want you to start filling it out just yet. Hang on until we share some material with you. And then we'll pause and say, all right, now this is part one reflection time. Go do the database, go to our survey and give us your inputs. And then we'll go to phase two and get your inputs there as well. All in our timeline of finishing by 1 o'clock. Okay, so let's move into the SWOT. Again, that stands for Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats, created by Andrews in the 1970s, one of the most widely used tools for tightening up the strategy inputs. Two dimensions of this. The first dimension is internal analysis. That's the strengths and weaknesses. What are the strengths that we can take advantage of and leverage more going into the future? Weaknesses are things that are controllable by us, but maybe not where they need to be yet for full success. Even in an entrepreneurial effort like this, there are some inherent weaknesses into our unit. But remember, that strengths and weaknesses are within our control. External analysis is outside of our control. That could include the university, the state, competition, macro trends. And so those are, we don't control those, but they should affect our strategy. Opportunities would be the positive things that we can get connected to or take advantage of. And the threats could hurt us if we're not careful. That's a mini strategy class on one of the most important strategy tools, but now is the exciting part where we're going to share some content. And I'm not going to read all these to you individually, but I will add a little bit of color from the research that's been done and these great meetings we've had with the SDSS task force that you saw before in terms of creating these points. You're going to be asked to opine on each one of them, strongly disagree to strongly agree, plus you can put a comment in on each box, like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Just a little color before you go into that. And by the way, you can use your Q&A if something is unclear. Hey, slow down, go faster. You can make suggestions to us, or you can ask us a question. This format is not to try to influence other people's opinions at this stage. We want you to tell us your opinions, but it's going to be, direct input of you to us via the computer mechanism. We will have a little bit of time for some questions and answers as we go. So do use Q&A if you need something clarified. On the strength side, again, entrepreneurial effort, but people who have been working on this and getting affiliated, you might want to know the history is really that it just got officially launched this past fall, I guess maybe last spring, and it was approved by the trustees prior to that. So this is a super exciting time, but the details are being worked out in terms of the plan right now. So what we do have, an affiliation with the UNC brand, top programs, so many top programs across this campus, strong industry relationships, again, with major data employers. A new school can leverage and existing relationships built across campus that they have established. You should see this complex grid of so many different units that have both courses, minors, other pieces of the puzzle that can be connected and leveraged and communicated externally. But there's a lot of data science, as I mentioned, on campus, and good data science. So putting those together, plus the relationships with many of you, quite frankly, it's so great to see so many of you here who are already doing some data science across campus to share your inputs and be part of this process. The last strength that we identified is the leadership team and the faculty are well-versed in data science fields. So we've got a nice, strong core to build off of. Obviously, it's going to have to be expanded at a pretty fast pace. So those are the three strengths. And again, we try to prioritize these, not to give you a list of 10, but to try to pick the top 3. You'll be asked essentially for type 1 or type 2 errors, including something we shouldn't have, or not including something we should have. And you can do that through the comment box at the end of each section. Don't start yet. Moving over the weaknesses, lack of teaching, research, and organizational infrastructure for data science at scale. So we're doing some, but it's fragmented and it's not built for significant numbers of students. So again, we're going to try to fix these weaknesses over time, but this is the current state of affairs. There are some efforts toward communication, but it needs more sophistication in terms of getting connected to funding. So having clear communications to the state to meet their objectives for the campus, for external funders in terms of research, for units and how we can work with them in joint communication. And then interdisciplinary relationships are present, but evolving. These are critical to success for this value proposition. So this has to be pan-university and interdisciplinary for success, also linking to the strategic priority of the campus as a whole. So strengths and weaknesses, again, internal. We'll circle back in a second and let you go into your evaluation of that, because you might think something's here and it might be in another box. I'll go to threats next, although we usually do that last. I like to end on a positive note with the opportunities. But the threats, hey, we've got competing programs out there. So we're not the first. It's still in development. We're early stages, but there are major players out there. I'm going to have my colleague Riley just articulate for you who are the top other data science providers across the country. And we've been focusing on analyzing the top 10 undergraduate, MBA, and online programs. Structural barriers may prevent fair sharing of resources for faculty and student engagement across campus. So we need this to be collaborative and not competitive across campus. We have to all be about data science advancement, and we have to find ways to think about accounting for students and for faculty in joint kind of arrangements. And then we have some uncertainty about recurring funding levels. So we got some money from the state. I believe it was $1 million was appropriated in the last budget process, but there was a request for 20 to 25 million. So we need a bigger number approved that could give us more sustainability. We do have great commitment coming from the university, but we need higher levels of sustainable recurring funding levels. All right, and on the opportunity side, wow, is this a hot area for jobs? Both number of placements in this field as well as salaries. Again, I'm going to circle back to Riley in a second. There's a lot of interest. Data science is a priority for economic development for the state of North Carolina. And I'm going to ask Riley to identify some of those big players coming in. And also the interdisciplinary collaboration within existing programs is beyond our control, but is something that we absolutely have to do for success. Riley, back to you. Before they go to fill in, could you just mention some of the competing programs across the country, and then also some data from our research on the demand and salaries for students?
Happy to. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, this is actually the perfect time to talk about some of the research that my team has conducted. As Paul mentioned, we've got a team of MBAs and also undergrad students from Kenan-Flagler Business School who've been working to better understand the competitive landscape of data science. And this research has helped to inform some of the opportunities that you see here in our SWOT analysis. There is a lot of opportunity in the field of data science, starting with that first bullet point that talks about the salaries that we're seeing for data science. There's 112,000 on average for the average undergrad student, which I can't even imagine what that looks like on the graduate side. But in comparison to other programs, it's upwards of 30% higher. There's a lot of demand in this field, and it is growing. We're seeing 40,000 additional jobs in the field of data science that will be created by 2030. In addition to that, there was an explosive growth in 2020 where we saw 36% more jobs added in that year alone. In North Carolina and in the Triangle and beyond, there's a lot of interest from large tech companies. We've got IBM, Apple, Google, and Red Hat, to name just a few. And those are companies with existing relationships with UNC, but we're really hoping that we'll strengthen those relationships through the School of Data Science and Society. And lastly, as Paul mentioned, we have done some research to understand better what the key players in the undergraduate and the graduate space are for data science programs. And so on the graduate or on the undergraduate side, I'll name the top 5 that we've looked at. The University of California, Berkeley, MIT, Carnegie Mellon, Georgia Tech, and Stanford. Schools that I'm sure you've heard of. On the graduate side, we have University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, Harvard, University of Minnesota, University of San Francisco, and University of St. Thomas. And on the online space, which in a post-COVID era is where we're seeing a lot of programs starting to be stood up in that area, especially on the MBA side where I am. In the data science side, we're seeing the leaders in that space as the University of Illinois, Urbana. Again, UC Berkeley shines in that area, Texas Tech, Bay Path University, and Worcester Polytechnic University or Institute. And so our team has conducted a lot of research that has informed the SWOT analysis that you see here. And we're excited to hear your feedback on these things. And so I'll turn it back over to Paul.
Thank you, Riley. And I'll mention there's a follow-up question. When you were talking about I think you said 40,000 additional jobs, what's the scope of that? And I know that you might even have some idea of the new companies that have been coming to North Carolina in this space over the next few years.
So the scope of that 40,000 is within the United States. If we look at Apple and Google specifically, who have invested or plan to invest pretty significantly in the Triangle nearby, we're seeing, I think it was anticipated 4,000 jobs just within the Triangle. So we're going to get a pretty large share of those jobs within the state, which is a great opportunity for the school.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Raleigh. Also, we do know that there are some data science programs within the state of North Carolina. Correct me if I'm wrong, Raleigh, but that would be NC State, UNC Charlotte, Duke.
Duke, yes. And also Virginia, a little further north, University of Virginia.
Great. And I think theirs just got up and running, but we're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Raleigh, for those additional details and research. I appreciate that. Continue your Q&A as you have any additional questions. We will allow you now to move into the feedback. I want to highlight, you're looking at strongly agree to strongly disagree. And so it's typically of scale 1 to 5. Anna sent me a note that maybe it's flipped in this one. Just make sure that we're responding to the appropriate I'm going to take a look. I looked at it earlier this morning on my phone. It worked great. You could do it on phone and on computer, and don't close it after you fill out your responses, because we will have a phase 2. So it goes 1 to 5. Strongly disagree is on the left as you look at your screen, should be, and then strongly agree is to the right. And that way you'll, that's going to be coded as a 5. I want to highlight that this is an anonymous survey. You will put in a category of respondent just to see if we have any variance across groups, but this is non-identifiable. It'll just be aggregated in its entirety for the results. So this is, we're going to be kind of quiet now, but I told my team maybe we should get the theme from Jeopardy to play or something to keep you more entertained, but let's just let you respond. Again, quantitatively, your level of agreement that these are the right strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. If you're just joining us, we welcome you. And we've walked through the project overview and presented these SWOT analyses for the School of Data Science and Society as it stands today. And we're asking every participant to share with their level of agreement on these as strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, plus to put in any comments in if they think of something else or they have even a positive, additional positive support in the comments section, which would be by each box. We ask you not to submit it when you're done with that, because there's a part 2 that we'll be getting to after we walk through some draft strategy statements with you in just a few minutes. It looks like we've got a slight problem in one of our survey questions, whereas the slide you see is right. The item on the survey for the third threat says is the same as the third opportunity. So that sounds like a little cut and paste mistake there. So the third threat, so you're responding to the right thing, should be uncertainty around recurring funding levels. Uncertainty around recurring funding levels. And I apologize for that. Another question that came through Q&A is about data science certificate from UNC's executive education. We have not covered that in terms of program portfolio. There are other programs that exist today throughout campus like this. I think there's also boot camps that are relevant. And when we said on their players and non-traditional players, corporations are starting to offer these certificates as well. So that'll be part of our strategy in terms of product offerings, program offerings moving forward. Okay, and those of you who maybe just joined, let's take the slide back to the QR code, Raleigh, that shows them the link to the survey. I think I got an email from someone who just joined. And so this is where the survey is located. So if you want to go to the survey, this would be the source. There's also a URL there, plus there's a URL in chat. And those of you who came in late, again, here's the link via chat. And as I mentioned, the third threat should be about the uncertainty of funding. It's misrepresented in the survey. My apologies for that. So let's go back to the questions to make sure they're responding to that. We'll have that fixed the next time around for sure. And we'll be careful about respondents that might have answered a different way on that question. Yeah, Riley, there's been a request for a repeat of the competitors. I think that would be great. Can you even take them to the top 10?
Happy to. So on the undergraduate side, I'll read them 1 to 10. So UC Berkeley, and I'll go a little slower. UC Berkeley, MIT, Carnegie Mellon, Georgia Tech, and in fourth place, actually, we have 3 ties. So it's Georgia Tech, Stanford, and University of Washington. And then 7th is Cornell. And then University of Illinois, Urbana. 9 is Columbia. And 10 is University of California, San Diego, UCSD. So in the master's programs, for in-person programs, like full-time, number 1 is University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. 2 is Harvard. 3 is University of Minnesota. 4 is University of San Francisco. 5 is University of St. Thomas. 6 is Indiana University. 7 is University of California, Irvine. 8 is Maryville University. 9 is Oklahoma State. And 10 is University of Rochester. And then on the online side for graduate programs, we have University of Illinois, Urbana again, UC Berkeley, Texas Tech, Bay Path University, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, that's number 5. Number 6 is Loyola University. Number 7 is the University of Missouri. 8 is New Jersey Institute of Technology. 9 is CUNY School of Professional Studies. And 10 is Syracuse University.
Thank you, Ryan. Our team also went in and analyzed and did profiles on all those programs, also the ones in the state, Duke, NC State, Charlotte, et cetera, and looked for differentiation before we came to our strategy statements that you're going to see in a few minutes. The closest one from quick memory that has this sort of incorporated in the DNA of the institution and more of a connector kind of role that this group envisions is Stanford. And only like maybe one or two of the competitors really get into the idea of the human person, the person side of this, the people effect side of this that we have that's part of the title society. So these will be elements for differentiation moving forward. Well, thank you very much. Again, we apologize for the mistake on the third threat. That should be about funding levels. We'll take a careful look at those responses. It's tricky when you have a survey with an inaccurate question. So we'll probably just pay attention to your qualitative comments on that one. But thank you very much for your inputs thus far. We're going to move now to part 2. Again, if you're just joining us, we did project overview. We're presented the SWOT. We've asked you to give your opinion on the SWOT. You can continue with the survey, really looking for type 1 or type 2 errors. And do we have the right top ones? And these are prioritized. I mean, there were others that came up in our analysis, but these are the ones that really need to be specifically addressed. Or are we missing something from your opinion? So now we'll move on. Don't forget to use the Q&A if you have any questions or clarifications from us. In the strategy journey, you do the analysis, and that's the assessment phase. Then you move into visioning. So we have some draft ideas, but we also will welcome any of your ideas. So as you get into responding, if you don't like the way something is worded, we don't ask you just to say you don't like it, but also give some better wording to move the effort forward. So let's move to the strategy statements. First, a mini strategy reminder of what these statements are and what they're intended to do. Organizations who are really, really clear about their succinct strategy, their positioning, their differentiation, and their prioritization are really successful. Those who try to do everything and be broad and unfocused have trouble. So the mission, we're going to have a slogan first. That's a really short statement that captures the essence of it, but also a mission statement. Why is this unit here? What is the primary objective to which the firm's programs or plans should be aimed? And in this case, it's a unit, but it's the same concept as a firm. The key constituents and how they'll be served must be clear and understood, and it should make you proud. I'm so proud to be part of that. The vision statement is more future-oriented. What are you trying to become? It should be motivating. It should make you excited. And then the values are about our interactions. Hey, if you're going to join this SDSS group, you got to be aware this is the culture, this is the guiding behaviors, this is what's important to them about interactions. It makes you belong. So those things should be so concise. There's a slogan, of course, for mission and vision, but all of that should be less than 35 words, according to experts in strategy. And then they will feed the priorities, objectives, and initiatives. We're going to tap on the priorities a little bit here, which are top of mind ideas that need to be addressed, especially over the next 5 years. But then later we'll get into implementation planning about how you bring those priorities to reality. That would be objectives and initiatives. We're not asking for your opinions on those, except giving us ideas going forward. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. All right, so now, again, this is our last content slide. So thank you for hanging with us. Just to put a little color around this, and then I'll pause and be quiet again to allow you time to respond via your computer or your phone. The mission slogan that the SDSS task force, supported by the consulting firm, has come up with, the slogan is Campus Catalyst, X plus DSS, X plus DSS. And the essence of that, if you read the full mission statement, we seek to be a powerful catalyst for all domains, accelerating their progress in this data-driven, data-rich world. We seek to be the perfect addition, meaning new things to the table, plus partner to UNC, as a hub with other programs, majors, degrees, and research breadth for the data-rich modern world. Okay, so it's really important. This is a connector, but also it's additive. So it's bringing new things to the table as well. We'll serve the state, nation, world with premier data science educational programs, innovative research programs directed to advance the public good. There's some differentiation against a number of the other programs that builds off of UNC's proud heritage of keeping the public in mind, thinking of public data dissemination, for example. So that's the mission statement. We're going to ask you to give your opinion of the slogan as well as the statement. separately. The slogan for the vision, again, moving forward, first in data for society. True emphasis with the exclamation point. The comma is just sort of giving some scope clarification for society. USDSS will be the #1 school, and that is the target, devoted to data science and society. Will lead by shaping the emerging field of data science with human-centric approach to the entire data life cycle. And that human-centric piece is critical. The impact of our research and graduates will game-changing across industries in North Carolina and beyond. Envision a world made healthy, safe, and prosperous for all through data-informed decisions. Okay, so it's what we're shooting to accomplish. Values, again, inner values primarily, student-focused, collaboratively solving major world problems, and interdisciplinary, inclusive, and pan-university. There were a lot of others that were suggested. These are the top. And then 3 big priorities over the next 5 years: launch new programs, for example, a new master's program very quickly in data science, but others as well. Secure sustainable resources to ensure that these things can be done properly, and then create university infrastructure and collaboration. So with that, I'll pause. I don't see anything in Q&A for clarification, and just let you take a few minutes to respond. What's your opinion quantitatively and qualitatively to these? If anyone's joining us late, we've covered a project overview, the SWOT analysis, and now we're into draft strategy statements. And we're asking you to go to the survey and give your opinions live about how you feel about these quantitatively, and make suggestions qualitatively in the comment box. When it comes to the priorities, we would love it if you gave any specific thoughts about objectives, initiatives, actions necessary to make this happen over the next 5 years, or highlight something you think could be an implementation block. So the link to the survey is in the chat, and we welcome your inputs. Give a few more minutes. Well, thank you very much for all your inputs thus far. We'll give you about 60 seconds more. And after that, we're going to have some time for some Q&A where you can offer questions and we'll respond. We'll also talk about next steps before we wrap. So about one more minute. Okay, we'll keep the survey open for any of you still working on that. We do appreciate your thoughtful responses and suggestions, especially related to the priorities. We wanted to bring Stan back. We got a few more minutes, as I mentioned, to take some Q&A with you and then also talk about next steps. I'll give you the next steps at a high level while you think about a question you may have, and you can put it right into your Q&A function. And then we will address those. I'll also give Stan a chance to offer any color commentary on anything that maybe I didn't cover in our efficient webinar that we planned collectively. But we will be taking the feedback that you've given during this session. Our team will content code this. All the qualitative comments will be content coded. The quantitative comments will be summarized to look for levels of agreement and for suggestions for change. We'll make revisions with the task force as we move into our next phase of finalizing the strategy statements and then moving into the implementation. And the implementation will be for each priority that does surface to the top. Each one will have objectives moving forward over the next 5 years, and each objective, probably about 3, best practice. And then we'll have some initiatives that need to be executed and owned to make things happen. So it'll be a pretty precise, but also clearly summarized and linked implementation plan with metrics and timelines, plus some budget as well. So with that, I haven't seen anything yet in the Q&A. So we do welcome any reactions, questions, suggestions you'd like to surface for the larger group. But in the meantime, I'll just give the microphone over to Stan and let him sort of offer some summary comments and his perspective.
So Paul, thank you so much for orchestrating this and your wonderful team. It's been great working with you all, and it's helping us move fast. And I think that's exactly what the campus is thirsty for. So I want to thank everybody who took the time to participate. It's unbelievable that this many people turned out, and I'm just so grateful. And I am humbled by the challenge that's in front of us, but I'm also extremely eager to embrace the opportunities, which are significant. I would be glad to answer any questions if you could pop them into the Q&A, at least to the best of my ability. I do know that because I have been a participant and then a panelist, I've lost the prior Q&A, the textual Q&A that were entered. But I know that the question was posed about NC State. NC State has one of the best analytics programs in the country. It's quite compact in the sense that they graduate a fixed number of students every year, and I think they're highly sought after and just a really effective program. I've known about the program now since its inception and have interacted with them to a fairly high degree. And I'm hoping that the two programs that the NC State program and SDSS are going to be distinctly different. There's going to be some overlap, obviously, but I'm very hopeful that we're doing things in a somewhat more conventional manner, although I would say that the first program we're going to launch is the new MADS program, Masters of Applied Data Science, and we're hoping that gets launched next fall. and we're busy working on getting the curriculum material developed, hiring the right people to teach the sections. And we've been very fortunate to have a good turnout on campus for people willing to help. How long is it going to be?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that a question about how long that program would be, and any other ideas on programs too.
Yes, I don't have an exact answer to that program question right now because we're in the process of developing the curriculum. We did get the curriculum approved, so that we have the permission to plan, and so we'll have an answer to that fairly soon. And if any of my colleagues have a greater degree of specificity there, I'd be glad to hear it. So I'm sorry I'm not able to answer the first question, but we're trying to work all of these out as fast as we can. The items we've been spending our time on in the last few months is largely the infrastructure needed to create the right documentation for hiring of various personnel, and that's gone very smoothly. We had a lot of support at the leadership level, and I'm very grateful for that. And I see there's another
Stan, there's another question, but you might want to just mention, I know you've talked about this, but one of your ideas for programs is jointly developed programs. So there would be some standalone programs, but also teaming up with the business school, teaming up with pharmacy. I don't know if you have any thought. I mean, that's part of this whole mission of being a catalyst and combiner.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are, I guess, not on our mailing list, we have created a number of job descriptions for both tenure track and term appointments. And those are more than shareable. We're eagerly looking for people to make joint appointments with. And so we are going to form these partnerships across campus. I had dinner with a collection of deans last night, and there was a lot of discussion around how we would be able to create those joint appointments and create new programs. So very much interested in finding a way to integrate this across the campus. Barbara, I see your question. I think the main argument for this from the state legislature is to commit to, in order to commit to recurring funds, I think it's very simple. This is a workforce development activity. We're going to be doing it at the undergraduate level as well as the graduate level, and I think it will be a compelling case. I've had nothing but support from the Board of Trustees and other legislators I've talked to. I haven't talked to a large number, but a few. And I think there's a great deal of support. Now, getting there may take multiple steps because that's the way things work at a government level. But I'm very optimistic that we're going to be able to get recurring funding and do a great job of bringing in research funding as well to sustain the new school.
One of the things that consulting team will be supporting Stan and his team on is looking at it from a return on investment perspective. So thinking about money going in, but also economic input coming out, both for the state and for the economy at large.
Exactly. And I'm reading the next Q&A. Very nice question. So this is a great question about the rigorous depth. So I've had this question at times, and we certainly hope that the program we develop at the undergraduate degree has multiple paths through, or threads, if you will, through the curriculum. And we certainly do hope that all of the threads have a significant amount of solid, rigorous, quantitative training. And I would also add that I'd like to see qualitative training in that pathway, at all pathways as well, because I think the data science folks that writ large are seeing that there's a great deal of synergy between these two areas. Additionally, there are some curricular programming that we do not yet teach on this campus that we need to think seriously about and how we're going to support it. And that was one of the things that you saw in the strategic plan. And that's around the ability to go to the cloud very rapidly and scale. So that's a skill set that is in high demand out in the industrial world, but it's also a skill set that helps people do their research far faster. And it is a clear demand from federal agencies. They want to see people who they are sponsoring to do research have that capability of being able to burst to the cloud with very well-tooled infrastructure, because in some cases we need to respond quickly to answer difficult problems. So I'm very much looking forward to working with the legacy departments, not duplicating what they're doing, instead working with them and trying to find new ways for their programs to either be slightly modified or perhaps not modified at all in order to fit into a rigorous curriculum. And Andrew, I hope that answers your question. Any other questions? Yeah, I have to say the commitment we've had from the Board of Trustees and from our leadership here on campus has been outstanding. I'm again very humbled by the charge and by the opportunity. So I just want to mention the fact that this is fantastic. Yes, Michelle, we certainly do want to partner with nonprofits. I've already talked a number of times with folks at RTI, and hopefully there'll be opportunities for people to perhaps take time to work with us to create the right curriculum material for particularly those industries that are in the triangle. So we want to be very responsive and maybe even create very unusual curricula that are not necessarily in a huge demand, but are very important from certain niches perspective. When I say niche, I don't mean that it's an area that's highly constrained. I mean that it's very specific to a particular industry. For example, one of the areas that I think is going to be ripe for opportunity in the coming years is in the insurance industry. And so that may not be something that's on lots of people's field of view right now, but increasingly as we move into a period of climate change and change in society in general, I think that this area of insurance is something that needs to be looked at from a data statistical standpoint, because we're beginning to move into somewhat non-stationary processes. We have some experts in those fields here on campus. That is not my area of expertise. Yeah, so the AND Society, I'm hoping that it is, thank you for the question. I hope that it is woven into every part of every class, in the sense that we think at the beginning, not at the end, at the beginning, about how we're going to think about the questions that we want to answer, think about the data that we want to collect, and think about the story we're going to tell. And we, in fact, are spinning up a small group to do some brainstorming along these lines. We have already a society action committee that we're forming, and we intend for the society part to be a great emphasis and something that we can look back on pride in 5 years and say, we achieved the goal of making this new program a program that emphasizes ethical and non-biased approaches in as much as possible. Hope that answers the question.
I think we're close to an end. I'll give you the microphone at the very end, but I'll say my thanks for all of your comments and suggestions. I saw a wide range of attendees from athletics, thinking about sports analytics, and all the way across to healthcare programs and business. So so exciting to pull these together and realize that that's essentially what this group wants this effort to be, and a catalyst for great things moving forward to solve big problems for society. It's a perfect timing for it. So I thank you I'm honored to have this opportunity to keep working with this group, and look forward to more work. So Stan, I'll give you the last word.
So any further questions, people, you are absolutely, please feel free to ask questions directly to me, and I'll do the best I can to type out what is likely to be fairly short answers, because I'm dealing with a fairly high level of email, but I'd be glad to talk to you, or I'd be glad to find another time to do an open forum and have a discussion with folks about things that are on their mind. We want to make sure that we're very receptive and as transparent as possible. So thank you all sincerely.
Have a great Tuesday. Time to go watch the World Cup.
That's right, in an hour.
Cheers, everybody.
Take care.